Hello, welcome to Jason Old Millennial. My name is Jason, speaking to you here in my basement in the great state of Kansas. Today's video, I am going to show off some physical media that I bought in the last couple of days. Yeah, I kind of just had this feeling I need to get more vinyl, CDs, Blu-ray, DVDs, all that kind of stuff. I don't know, I just kind of had that itch in me that I just had to feel, I just had to scratch it, and so I just felt like going out and getting some stuff anyways. Some on Amazon, some at Walmart, some at a used vinyl and CD place called Vintage Stock, which I go to. This is about my third time going there, so I always like looking to see what cheap stuff they have that I can add to my collection. So yeah, so I just want to show off what I bought recently. Quite a bit of stuff here anyways. Show off. I'll start with some movies I bought. I just bought a couple movies. This one I bought on Amazon, The Phantom of the Opera. Pretty good price. I think I saw on Amazon, like the price went down to like $10 or something. I don't know. So it was at a pretty good price. I was like, oh, this is a movie I really wanted to get at some point. And kind of surprised I don't have it in my collection yet, because it's one of my favorite musicals of all time. I did my top 10 favorite musicals recently. I think it was even my top 5. I mean, I saw this when it came out, and I was blown away. Like, I didn't know anything about the music. I've heard of Phantom of the Opera, but I remember seeing the movie theater. It was like, wow, this was like one of the best movies I've ever seen. One of the best musicals I've ever seen at that point. And I remember going out and getting the CD and listening to the music back then over and over again. Yeah, just absolutely fantastic overall score by Andrew Lloyd Webber. It's a classic for a reason. And I think the movie does a pretty good job there. I mean, I think it's maybe a little long. I think there's a couple of scenes that maybe could have been cut out. The story's not maybe the greatest story of all time, but like I said, the performance, and also the first time I ever saw Gerard Butler in a movie. So it's cool to see Gerard Butler as a Phantom. I thought he did a really good job. And, overall, I say just the music is just so good. It makes me love this movie. So I'm definitely glad I finally got that on Blu-ray. This I saw at Walmart, and I just kind of felt like I had to have it. And that is Weird, the Al Yankovic story that came out just last year, I think, or 2022 it came out. And it was in my top 10 favorite movies of the year, and probably my favorite comedy. Of course, I'm a big fan of Weird Al Yankovic. I've listened to all of his music. I've always been a fan of Weird Al since I was a kid. I was kind of somewhat obsessed with him in a sense. But yeah, when this movie came out, it came out like on the Roku channel, which is weird. But if you have a Roku, you can just get on the Roku and watch it for free, basically. So I remember watching this and thinking, gosh, if I could get this on physical media, I would love to have it. And so I saw it at Walmart, and it wasn't that expensive either. It's a DVD, and you have Daniel Radcliffe playing Weird Al, and he's absolutely hilarious. And anyway, it looks like there's a lot of special features on here as well, so I'm excited to get into that. But yeah, really glad I got a chance to get that one. I also saw this movie at Walmart, and I was like, yeah, I definitely need to get this. And this is Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. It was, again, in my top 10 favorite movies of the year. Probably my favorite action movie, sort of say, of the year, of course. And I'm a big sucker for the Mission Impossible movies. In fact, I have Mission Impossible 3 now through this, I think the 7th movie of the series. The first 2, I'm just not a big fan of the first 2, so I don't know if I'll ever get the first 2. And it feels like the third movie felt like it was a reboot of the series in a sense. And I feel like it connects very well, the third movie to the 7th movie. And I'm assuming there's going to be an 8th movie because this is Part 1. So whenever Dead Reckoning Part 2 comes out, hopefully in another year or so, we'll have kind of a complete franchise here of the Tom Cruise Mission Impossible movies. And yeah, so again, I thought really good, some good action sequences in here that I still come back to. I've only seen it once at a theater, so I'm excited to watch it again. Looks like there's some commentary by the director and also some special features on here, like how they do the stunts, which is actually always cool. Like, if you get any of the Mission Impossible movies, they usually have like a special feature on the stunts, because stunts are always top notch in these movies. So yeah, it's the only movie I've gotten, I think, so far from last year. So I need to get some more from last year that I really like. Anyway, so yeah, so those are the movies I got. Now to get to some music. This is a CD I bought on Amazon as well, Ram, Paul McCartney's second album. Actually, it's Paul McCartney, Paul and Linda McCartney. Is who they say it's for, made the album. But yeah, big fan of Paul McCartney's music. Of course, I have. This is the 11th album I've gotten so far of his. So he has like 26 or something like that, or 24. I can't remember. So my goal is to try to get all of his albums, probably on CD most likely because they're cheaper, and so I'm kind of getting into getting those when I can. So yeah, this is a big album. This is considered one of his best albums. To be honest, it's not one of my favorite of his. Funny enough, people like a lot of people have this like their number one favorite Paul McCartney album. It has a couple good stuff like definitely the Admiral Halsey. Let's see, Uncle Albert, Admiral Halsey is definitely my favorite song on here. Absolutely amazing song. The big hit on here, in fact. And Too Many People is pretty good, and Heart of the Country is pretty good, and the Backseat of My Car, the final song is really good too. So there's a couple good stuff in here, but definitely one obviously a big one I need to get in my collection. So glad to get that. All right, now I got a bunch of vinyl to talk about. I definitely got some good vinyl here. First one, I got this on Amazon, and this is the soundtrack to The Spy Who Loved Me, the James Bond movie with Roger Moore and Barbara Bach. Barbara Bach, who's married to Ringo Starr or the Beatles, so there's a connection there. Yeah, I recently was on a channel called, let's see, I'm trying to think of it. The guy's name is Gareth, and it's Video Tasties is the name of the channel. And he has a really cool channel. He has over 3,000 subscribers now. And Gareth does a lot of cool watch-along parties, and he talks about movies from the past on there. And I was on there a couple weeks ago. He invited me on, which I was so honored to be on his channel. Talking about James Bond songs. If you didn't see it, it was a real cool discussion. We talked about James Bond for about 2 hours, which I'm a big James Bond fan, so I like talking about James Bond stuff, and especially music. I think the music is fantastic in James Bond. I think I really have a lot of love for that. So that was fun talking about that. And Gareth had some vinyl, some James Bond vinyl that he showed on the channel. And when I saw that, I was like, that is so cool. Like, I never thought about getting the soundtracks on vinyl before, but when he showed me it, I thought it looked so cool. It's like, I need to start getting some James Bond vinyl. Anyway, so that's why I saw this on Amazon for not too expensive. So I was like, well, I'll catch it. I'll pick this one up. And the good thing is that it has my favorite James Bond song. Nobody Does It Better by Carly Simon was my number one favorite James Bond song. So this was a pretty good one to get my first James Bond vinyl. I thought it was like, not a bad choice for my first one. And I don't know if I can get them all because some of them seem like they run kind of expensive. So I'll keep looking and see if I can find more. I'd love to add more to my collection. And I just love the artwork on the front of these James Bond stuff, of course, and talks about the movie, and it definitely highlights the song Nobody Does It Better, which is the big thing off here. Music by Marvin Hamlish. It's one of the few James Bond movies that isn't scored by John Barry, who scored most of the early stuff. But I even like the back. You have some pictures of the movie on there, and you have the credits. And anyways, I don't know. I just like the whole look of it. Anyways, I did listen to it actually the other day, and it's okay. Like, I think Nobody Does It Better is great. The Bond theme's great. There's a Nobody Does It Better instrumental in there that's actually pretty good. The first song on side 2, Anya, I thought was real pretty. And then the end titles, you have the end titles that goes right into the song Nobody Does Better Again. So you kind of get the song 3 times on the record, Nobody Does It Better, which is great. But yeah, so some good stuff there. Some of the other instrumental stuff I didn't care for. So it's kind of a hit or miss, I guess, in some senses. But still, I'm just glad to have it in my collection. This next one, I was so excited to see. I actually saw this at Walmart, looking through Walmart vinyl, and I saw it and I was like, oh, I have to get it. And that is Back to the Future soundtrack. Of course, I'm a big fan of the movie. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. And I do love the music. The music is fantastic. I love Alvin Silvestri's score. I think it's just so good in this movie. The bum, 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 bum. I mean, it's a fantastic score. Some of the scores here. And Alvin Silvestri is one of my favorite composers, movie composers of all time. So yeah, so I'm just so glad I got like, oh man, I can add another Back to the Future item into my collection other than the movies. So I always love, I do love getting soundtracks for movies that I like. It is a lot of fun. And I listened to it the other day, and again, a lot of good stuff here. Of course, you have two Huey Lewis and News songs, which to me are like the best stuff maybe on the album. The Power of Love, which was nominated for Best Song, and Back in Time. It's so fun. Both songs are just, I'm a big fan of Huey Lewis and News, so I was glad to get those two. And then the Back to the Future score is great, and also Back to the Future Overture on here is really great. And then you get a couple other random songs. I feel like I don't know why they're on here. There's one by Lindsey Buckingham, one by Eric Clapton, one by Etta James. Like I don't know why they're on here, and to be honest, didn't really care for those songs, if I be honest. And then at the end, they end with some 50s songs that they sing at the end of the movie. So that was kind of cool to get some of that stuff. Like Earth Angel was great, I love that. And then Johnny B. Good, it ends with Johnny B. Good. Of course, this is Marty McFly's version, not Chuck Berry's version of Johnny B. Good, but still, it's a lot of fun to listen to, and it's of course a huge moment in the movie. So yeah, really happy I found that. All right, then the next five vinyl I got, I went to, like I said, this used. It's called Vintage Stock. It has used vinyl, used CDs, used Blu-rays and DVDs, comic books. It has like a lot of different stuff, and it's a really cool store that I go to. This is the third time I've gone to it, of course. So I like going to it every once in a while just to kind of browse the vinyl and the CDs, because I usually can get something pretty cheap on there. Even if it's used, if it works, I'm like, fine, I'll accept that, you know. Yeah, so I found some pretty cool stuff. I wasn't sure if I was going to find anything. Sometimes I go and it's like there's not a lot of, I don't find a lot of good stuff in it, but this time I found some good stuff that I was really excited to get. So the first one I got to show off is Something New by the Beatles. Something New, Something New. So, and of course you can see it's pretty worn down, old record here, and I haven't played it yet, so hopefully it works. That's something I need to do next, is start playing these, and hopefully they still work okay, even though they're kind of old and scratched. But again, I got for $5, so pretty good price for vinyl. When I usually like the Back to the Future vinyl, I spent $30 on, you know. Yeah, it's an interesting one. I was really excited to see. Of course, I'm a huge fan of the Beatles. They're my favorite bands. And so anytime I see something from the Beatles I don't have, like I'm like, yeah, I definitely want to get this, especially for a low price. And what's cool about this, of course, if you've never heard of this album, this is the U.S. This came out in the U.S., not in the U.K., and it's a Capitol Records, of course, not EMI record. And so, of course, if you know, the UK and the US were putting out different albums for the Beatles. So this probably came out in 1964, I'm guessing, because these have songs from the movie Hard Day's Night. So this came out probably maybe right before Hard Day's Night did, or right around that time. So it must have been about 1964. So, because, well, we did get Hard Day's Night, but it was just a different version of Hard Day's Night in the U.S. So this, but again, this must have came in between, because this is the third album in the U.S. The first one was Meet the Beatles. Second one was the Beatles' second album. And then this came out. So the first two probably cover Please Please Me with the Beatles albums. This one's covering the kind of somewhat of the third album in a sense. Because we have Things We Said Today, Anytime at All, When I Get Home, all from Hard Day's Night. Of course, and then it says even says on here, you get songs from the movie. I'll Cry Instead, Tell Me Why, And I Love Her, I'm Happy Just to Dance With You, and If I Fell. So we're actually getting like 8 songs from the movie, which is kind of cool. I was like, it doesn't have Hard Day's Night or Can't Buy Me Love, which are the two big singles that came off that album. In fact, it doesn't have most of the songs, probably from the second side, that aren't in the movie. For most part, there's some in the movie like And I Love Her and If I Fell and If I'm Happy to Just Dance With You. So it does have some stuff from the first side as well. Yeah, what's interesting, it has Slow Down and Matchbox, which I'm pretty sure were B-sides to, those are probably B-sides to, I'm guessing, Hard Day's Night and Can't Buy Me Love are probably the A-side. So we got two pretty bad B-sides here. And then we get Komm Gib mir den Hand, which is I Want to Hold Your Hand in German. So we get a German song on here, which of course not totally crazy about, but it's cool. it's unique. I have something unique in my collection, which I'm always kind of glad to get something unique here anyways. And still, I got two of my favorite songs actually off of Hard Day's Night here with And I Love Her and If I Fell are just absolutely amazing songs. So still kind of excited. I love to get more US releases. Like, of course, Meet the Beatles would be awesome. Beatles' second album, 65, Beatles 65. I know there's some other ones I need to get. All right, this next one I was really excited to see. This is Supertramp's album, Even in the Quietest Moments. And it's pretty good condition as far as like the cover. And this is $15, so it's a little more expensive because it's in better condition overall anyways. And even has a slip cover, which most of these don't. So yeah, definitely got a good version of this, I think. And it's funny because Supertramp is a band I was not familiar with till recently. We, when I was on SoundLab Studios in our group with Scott, Nick, Breyer, and myself, we do these album reviews. And we did an album review of Breakfast in America, which is the album after this. And Breakfast in America is like kind of this is the biggest album has the biggest hits on it, I would say, from Supertramp. And so we reviewed that album, and I thought it was pretty good. I thought it was overall, you had some decent stuff there. And so I was interested enough, I've been going through Supertramp's discography recently, and I'm going to do a deep dive on them at some point. And even Nick said this was his favorite Supertramp album, which I was like, how can you beat Breakfast in America? Because I had the big hits on it. And yeah, I got this album, and I was like blown away. I was like, this is an amazing album. Like, I give this a 9.5 out of 10. I mean, I almost give this a perfect 10 score on my first listen. It's so good, and it only has like one big hit on it. But I have to recommend this to anybody. If you don't know Supertramp, like, definitely get this album. This album's amazing. Also, Breakfast in America is really good. And I have a couple more albums I need to listen to, but I was just so surprised. Like, not too long ago, I had no idea who Supertramp was. And recently I found out who Supertramp was. And I heard this album just a couple weeks ago. And here I saw it at the used record store. And I was like, oh my gosh, what's my luck that I found this album that I absolutely loved that I just recently heard. And now I get to have it on vinyl. So that was, to me, one of the best finds I got this last time. But just to tell you, like, the first song, Give a Little Bit, is a song you probably heard on the radio. That's their big hit off of here. But every song is actually really good. Downstream is my favorite on here. It's really pretty. As you can see, there's a piano. There's a lot of really pretty piano pieces in here. But yeah, definitely really loved getting that. Another album I was really happy to find is Wednesday Morning at 3 a.m. Simon Garfunkel's first album, their debut album. Yeah, of course, I'm a huge Simon Garfunkel fan. I've been wanting to get all their albums at some point. I have 2 of them, so I got 3 out of their 5, so I just need 2 more. I have Bridge Over Troubled Waters on CD, actually, and then I have Parsley, Sage, Rosemary, and Thyme on vinyl that Breyer gave me, which very, very, very thankful to Breyer for doing that. And now I got a 3rd one, so that's kind of cool. So I'm definitely on my way to get all 5 Simon Garfunkel albums and complete that band's discography. And this actually is still pretty good. It's their first album. It's much different than the other ones. It's a little more folk and not as much folk rock. I think the next album, Sound of Silence, and then Parsley, Rosemary, Thyme, they're definitely getting to the folk rock, which I really like. This one's just straight like folk and almost gospel. There's a lot of almost kind of gospel like type songs on here anyways. Of course, the big one is the Sounds of Silence is on here, but it's the acoustic version, which is much different than the hit song. It wasn't the hit song that was on the radio. This is the acoustic version, and then they added electric guitar and drums and bass and all that to it to make the big #1 hit that will be on the next album, Sounds of Silence. But still, it's a good song. I still love the Sound of Silence on here. The acoustic version is still pretty darn good. But yeah, overall, it actually still sounds really good. They sound really good. They do a lot of cover songs on here. That's the big, maybe, it's actually my 4th favorite out of 5. It's not my least favorite, but it's towards the bottom. But still, I think I give it like an 8 out of 10. I still think it's very solid just because the harmonies are still there. And even the cover songs are done very well as well on here. But yeah, so I still, yeah, really excited to find this, get $10 on vinyl. All right, 2 more to talk about. Funny, this one is actually more of a blind buy. I actually haven't really heard this album, but I like the band so much that I gave a chance on it. And this is Chicago. This is their second album. The first album was Chicago Transit Authority. And if you know anything about Chicago, like the second album is Chicago. The next album is called Chicago 2. The next album is Chicago 3 and Chicago 4. And they just go Chicago and put a Roman numeral after it. And that's kind of how it goes. And that's how you know where it is in the discography. So this is early on, very early on, obviously, with more of their rocking, jazzy rock style before they would go more pop ballad, whatever, power. They'd be more of a power pop, ballad band back in the 80s or later in the 80s. So this came out in the early 70s, or 70 probably, because I think the first one came out in 1969. So you're talking probably really early 70s here. And it's a double album too, which is crazy that they really hit it on the double albums early on. Not much to this. I mean, the gatefold is just, there's like some kind of weird poem or something on there I didn't really read. And then there's all the sides, and it's hard to read because it's all in like cursive kind of thing. But anyways, but the reason why I got it is just because I looked at it and it has 25 or 6 to 4, which is my favorite Chicago song. I really love that song. It's one of my favorite rock songs. And so I was like, I'll take a chance and buy it. I'm sure there's some other good early stuff on here that I'll like other than that. So I kind of took a chance because I do love Chicago's vocals, the harmonies, the horns are just great, and I definitely want to get this. The first Chicago album that I've got in my collection, so I definitely want to, and I haven't listened to all their stuff. They have a lot of albums, so that's definitely a big deep dive I'll do at some point where I need to get through more of their stuff because I am a big fan of them. And my friend Scott told me that this is his favorite Chicago album, so I'm like, okay, good. So I'm pretty confident I got a good buy there with this, and I took a chance, $5 on this. All right, last album I'll talk about is called Renaissance by The Association. This is another one I saw and I was like, oh, I got to get this because I actually really like this album. It's their second album, I believe. Their first album is also pretty darn good. It's funny, the first album has their kind of 2 big hits on it. I think Along Comes Mary, maybe, or yeah. So the first one is probably the more well-known album, the bigger one, but I actually kind of like this album even more. And even though it doesn't have their big hits on it. And if you know The Association, they actually had a lot of pretty good hits in the 60s. I mean, it's a mid-60s kind of folk rock era type American band, as you can see. But actually has my second favorite Association song on here, which is No Fair at All, which wasn't a huge hit for them. I think it was a single maybe, but didn't chart all that great. But it's very underrated. It's an amazing song. The harmonies are some of the best harmonies I've ever heard. And it's just a very laid back, kind of easygoing. If you know Association, they have a lot of these laid back, easygoing songs. And sometimes they have upbeat. But anyways, I still think No Fair at All, it's worth buying this just for that song. But it's overall actually quite a good album, I think. Yeah, so I'm excited to get my first Association album into my collection. Definitely a band I need to venture into more because what I've heard of them, I really like. Kind of underrated band, I think. Like I said, they had some good hits. Like Never My Love is my favorite song from them. I think it's an absolutely fantastic song. Yeah, Along Comes Mary and Cherish and Everybody Knows It's Windy, so you got a lot of good stuff there. So excited to hear this again and venture into that. So anyway, so that's my collection, or what I've added to my physical media collection today. So feel free to comment. What do you think? What are your favorite out of this list? I love to read the comments, and just thank for anybody that has watched this video or liked it, and thank to everybody who subscribes to my channel. I appreciate all of you, and I hope you have a good day.